The following demonstration for Adobe Illustrator is going to go over and introduce you to these selection tools that are located at the top of your toolbar. We'll talk about the selection arrow, or the black arrow, the direct selection tool on the right here, this white arrow. We'll also introduce you to the group selection tool, the magic wand, and lasso selections. So let's get started with some example simple shapes that I've put here on the artboard. The direct selection tool is handy because not only does it allow you to select something, but it also creates a bounding box that gives you all sorts of options. Let me show you what I mean. If I select this rectangle, notice how it creates a bounding box around this rectangle shape on the artboard. Also, if I hover over the corner or the sides of that shape, it allows me to click and drag and adjust the size and shape of that particular item on the artboard. So I can scale as well as rotate. Notice how I hover over the top edge of a corner point on that bounding box, and my cursor turns to the little rotation arrow symbol. If I click and drag, that allows me to rotate along the central axis point. So the direct selection tool is very handy. This can be used to select, move, scale, and rotate all kinds of items on your artboard. Now let's take a look at the direct selection tool. I'm going to click away on the artboard to select none. And using my direct selection tool, which is the plain white arrow, I can click on a shape and select it, just like the selection tool, but I do not get the bounding box. Another cool thing that I can do is I can select an individual point on that shape. So let's select this top point of the star. Notice when I select that point, it darkens that particular anchor point, and the other anchor points are shown with white little boxes. I'll zoom in closer so that you can see what's going on there. Not selected points are white, while the selected point, anchor point, is darkened in. So once I select that particular point, I can move it around. Now this is an example of a corner anchor point. What if I zoom out? What if I want to select and manipulate a point on the circle? What happens then? Well, the circle is comprised of non-corner points. These are actually curved Bezier lines, Bezier curves. Now, if I use the direct selection tool to select one of these curved anchor points, notice how I get these little handles. Now the little handles are symbolic and let me know that this is a Bezier curve that can be manipulated. If I click and drag those handles, I can manipulate the shape of that curve. I can also click and drag to move that point and manipulate that curve. So the direct selection tool is very powerful in allowing you to select and manipulate specific points along your path. Now what if I wanted to group these objects? Let me zoom out just a moment. And I select by clicking with my selection tool, click and drag across the artboard. Now I have selected all three. All three can be easily detected as being selected because I get that familiar bounding box which encompasses all three shapes. Now if I go Command G or Object Group, I have now made a group, and if I use my selection tool and click on these items, it selects all three. And I can click anywhere on one of these items and it continues to select all three as a group. Now under your direct selection tool is a group selection tool, and within that I can actually, let me click away here, I can actually select one member of the group only. Notice how that different behavior of selecting one member of the group is different from using the direct selection tool, which selects all members of the group. And this can be handy when you have a large number of items on your illustration artboard, and you want to select just one particular group member. Now notice also how I'm sort of clicking away before I do things. That just ensures that I am able to select one member instead of the entire group. So by clicking away in the artboard, I deselect items. So that's just a little subtle thing that I'm doing behind the scenes that you may not notice. Another cool thing is this selection lasso tool. Remember how the direct selection tool allowed me to select specific points and manipulate them? The lasso tool allows me to select more than one point. So let's say I wanted to select these endpoints here on the star and maybe make the larger on this end of the star, or move them away to make the star look like it's shooting across the screen. So I can do that by simply clicking and dragging on the artboard. Notice how that makes that little circular shape that shows where I have dragged, and I have now selected all 3 of these points. If you zoom in, you can see that those 3 points are selected. Again, they are darkened in while the others remain white. So that's an important tool to use if you need to select and manipulate a variety of points. And as you can see here, I'm just using the right directional arrow on my keyboard, and I'm just clicking and holding, and it's moving those 3 points that I have selected off to the right. And I'm just doing that with my directional arrow keys on my keyboard. Now, the magic wand tool is a little more complex and probably something you won't be using much in the beginning stages, but it's nice to know that it's there. The magic wand tool allows you to select very specific items like the outline or stroke or the fill of an item, and you can select by certain parameters. Let me bring up that floating panel. Under Window and Magic Wand, you have this floating panel. And let's say I've selected stroke color and I only want to select black strokes within this group. Remember that these items are already grouped. If I click on the stroke with the tolerance set to 2, because it's only a black line really that I'm selecting. So I select the stroke. You can see on the left hand side of my toolbar that only the black stroke is selected, and that every single black stroke within the group has been selected. So I could do wacky things like I could change that stroke color if I wanted to. Maybe I needed to change every outline in the illustration to bright red. That's a little pink. Let's choose a brighter red. And now let's zoom in to see the results. You can see if I click away that all of the strokes or the outlines of the objects have been turned to that bright red. So the Magic Wand tool is a powerful selection tool you won't use at first, but it's nice to know that you can have this level of distinction with your selection tools in Adobe Illustrator. And this concludes your introduction to the selection tools.